Zebo going on his own. He gets the try.
The Red 78.
We're both Munster people.
Carberry gets over the line. Try from Munster.
Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
Hello and welcome along. I'm Alan Quinlan and you're listening to episode 68 of the Red 78 here on the Rugby channel. And with me as always is Niamh Briggs, who's had another tough weekend, unfortunately, but positives to take again, and you'll have to try and take some positives out of it anyway, Niamh. And then poor Spurs, your soccer team got destroyed as well by Newcastle, so not good, but...
And we lost the club AIL Cup final on Sunday.
And lost the club as well. What a weekend.
Tough weekend. Why would anyone coach?
Maybe the Munster team gave you a little bit of a lift with their second half performance. But look, just going back to your game briefly, I know the listeners want to know your thoughts on what happened on Saturday, and disappointing to lose. And I know your mentality is, even though England were such strong favourites, you were probably going in with a tough mentality and hoping for more, but some positives still.
Yeah, huge amount of positives really, which is not really to sound condescending or patronising. I think to hold England scoreless for 30 minutes in the second half was unbelievable for us in our defensive shape, considering that we hadn't been great before that in terms of our cohesion and then our line integrity. We still missed way too many tackles. But made life difficult for ourselves in that last 10-minute period. But they're definitely maturing and getting better as the weeks are going on. We can see that, and we can see those kind of green shoots. So from that point of view, there's a huge amount of confidence to take into this weekend. Just got to be more patient with the ball. I think kicked it away when we didn't need to at times, and we were just a little bit too passive in attack. So we're just focusing on key points or one or two little things every week, and the nature of the beast is that as we focus on one or two things, we're kind of forgetting about other things at times as well. So it's just trying to marry everything together that we've been through over the last 5 or 6 weeks. So, look, it's a huge part of you is immensely proud of that group and how they stuck with it. And, you know, we were a try down within 90 seconds and then to be 27-0 down at half time and then to be still 27-0 down on the 70-minute mark. We just needed to be better in that last 10 minutes. We gifted up some very soft tries, which is incredibly frustrating. But pride and proud, I suppose, of the girls, but also frustrated that we didn't put points on the board.
Is it hard to pick them up after a game like that, or pick yourselves up? Because it's difficult. You know, you've played 4 and you've lost 4, and that's not the plan. We know where the team were at probably beforehand and the development kind of path you're on, but is it hard to pick yourself up and the other coaches and players?
Yeah, look, you're obviously questioning yourself as a coach and you're questioning lots of things that you're doing and whether you're doing things right. And then they do something at training or they do something in a match and you realise, okay, look, we're on the right road. So it kind of gives you that little, I suppose, affirmation that what we're doing and how we're going about our business is the right. It's just that we're trying to marry technical and tactical ability on the international stage and try and learn and develop that. It can be hard. Look, I'm not going to tell you a word of a lie. It's been a very, you know, I've already said it, but it's been quite a draining few weeks in terms of, you know, you'd love us to just get a win because I feel like we've worked incredibly hard. Then so have every other country. So, you know, as well as I do, we don't always get what we deserve in sport. We've just got to go and earn it now. And I think one big last push for this week and we'll see where we are.
There's a lovely tweet in here when I put out a tweet yesterday from Mark Meehan, who was with us from the supporters club earlier in the, was it last year or late last season or early this season? I can't remember. And Mark sent a lovely message on Twitter for Niamh. At the game on Saturday in Musgrave Park, Niamh's care and leadership with the team was just outstanding. Word of confidence, care and connecting with the players before, during and after the game. True leadership is what you do when times are tough. Well done, Niamh. Really nice message. So,
thank you.
Yeah, when your back is against the wall, you've got to try and stick together. And but look, I thought it was a lovely message to read out. Just for the record, England scored 58 points against Scotland in round 1, 68 against Italy in round 2, and 59 against Wales in round 3 away. Are they the best team in the competition? Or France?
By far. It'll be a really good match this weekend. They've obviously sold over 50,000 tickets for Twickenham, which is incredible and unbelievable to get there. Yeah, look, they really, really are. They're like, it's the sheer size of them and the pace that they move at is unbelievable to watch, but also scary to play against, I'd imagine, because when you're taking off one prop that's 100 and odd kgs and you're bringing on someone like Sarah Byrne who's 100 and whatever, and the second row's 100 and whatever, and all of a sudden you're up against a tight five that weighs more than your scrum. It's mental, and they can move and they can chip the ball. So, yeah, look, they're very well. They're great. They're a really, really good side. And, but we at times made pressure them into the mistakes. We made them look a little bit ordinary in terms of that edge attack. I know they were frustrated. We chatted after the game with their coaching group and some of their players. We made life difficult for them, which is great and something that we can hold on to for this weekend. And we talk about Munster all the time, and it's going to be a big challenge for us as a group, whether we can get to that pitch mentally again this Saturday. You know, a lot of tired and sore bodies from the weekend. When you've defended for such long periods throughout 80 minutes, there's always going to be a huge collision rate. And I think that we've got to try and bring ourselves back up now, as you know, come Saturday to get to that pitch so that we can compete at that level.
And what is the mentality for Saturday? So Scotland were beaten, they beat Italy 29-21 at home. So they have
that was their first win as well. So yeah, look, our mentality is to go and get after them. We've obviously identified things that we can get better at, and we've identified areas that we can go after them too. And I think that we've got to be brave. I say it every week to the girls. They must think I'm harping on her like a broken record, but I feel like if we can just push that pass one more time, if we can look to get the little bit of space, but attack it, square on and with pace, then we can, we've got a really good back three centre partnership that we can do damage. I think we've looked at like Durban who's even in a rough kind of a campaign for us, she's still gaining a huge amount of meters every time she carries. She's still a huge live wire, and Niamh Jones, like she made 28 tackles against England, missed none. Like incredible stats. And so we've just got to go and be confident. And I think it's easier said than done, obviously, because we've not had a great start and we've lost our games. But we have to take the green shoots from every single game and try and marry them together. We had a really good session this morning, really good, great buy-in by the players, really good energy. So, I think we just got to keep going forward.
Okay. Well, look, good luck for this week anyway, again. And hopefully you can get that elusive win. That would be reward for all the hard work. But as you know yourself, sport can be tricky at times, and hopefully the team are going to learn from this and get better. That's what everyone wants. And there was great support there again, which was lovely to see on Saturday. So lots of positive people out supporting you. Okay, let's move on to the Munster match. 2 weeks, two extraordinary results. 7 points from 2 games. We didn't see it, and I don't think anyone in Munster would be offended by any pundits saying that it's going to be extraordinarily difficult to get anything in South Africa, given where the Stormers were. They hadn't lost in 21 games at home, champions of the competition last year, and given what happened a couple of weeks ago when Munster played the Sharks in the Champions Cup. So I don't think there's no bright sparks out there who predicted this, but the team deserve massive credit. We give them, they got some criticism in the last few weeks for the Glasgow game and for the Sharks game. 2 very good, strong sides they were playing, but they could have been better. And by their own admittance, they should have been and could have been better. Wouldn't have guaranteed them wins there, but they had a dip. But if you look at where they are, and we keep going back because it's a good reference point. In the last 11 URC games, they've won 9 and lost 2. That's a great return, given every team has a little bit of a lull here and there and can get caught out. So to win at 9 of their last 11 since they beat Connacht on the 26th of October, they've gone on a really good run there. I think, obviously, we were dwelling on the Glasgow game a few weeks ago when it was at home and how damaging that could have been. They played 11, they lost 2 and drew 1. My apologies. I keep thinking the Sharks game is like a win, but it is. Yeah, it was a really good return for them, given where they were a couple of weeks ago and that disappointment over Glasgow and the Sharks in the Champions Cup. Just to look at the table, and we'll go on to the tweets in a minute. So Munster finished 5th on 55 points. We probably didn't see this after 7 rounds either when they lost 5 games, Niamh.
No, 100%. I think it's incredible. I met and Andrew Connery was bounced around the HPC this morning. We were just chatting about it. Like, what? Like, that is a success for Munster for this season, considering the start, and then obviously getting into Europe and getting into the knockout stages of the URC. Like, that's just an unbelievable finish, and it takes a huge amount of credit to that coaching staff, but also to the playing group for sticking with it. Because look, you can say like that. They could have easily gone back to what they were used to, and things like that, and gone back into their shell a little bit, but they didn't. They continued to be brave. They continued to push their skills, push the pace of how they played, push the intensity of what they did, or of how they went about things, and I think that's like incredible. That is just complete another buy-in, and when you have that, you can do so much. So yeah, I'm delighted for them. I really, really am.
Yeah, you could be greedy and say, well, it would be better to be in the top 4 if they'd won 1 or 2 of those games at the start. But the point is, everyone was really being pessimistic after 7 rounds when you had lost 5 of your first 7. I think the big plus here now is, obviously they're in the playoffs, but Europe is really, really important, not just from actually the prestige of playing in the competition, but from a financial point of view, corporate hospitality and match days, supporters, excitement of the fans coming in, big teams coming to Thomond Park, and being on the road in Europe is something that obviously Munster have had great journeys and great success over the years. So I think it's really important to be in that competition. And a couple of weeks ago, it looked like it was hampered by that loss to Glasgow, but they went to South Africa, and to beat the Stormers and get a draw against the Sharks, given they were 22-3 down at half time. And I thought, we'll go into this a little bit more in a minute, I thought genuinely that it was going to be a big hurdle to climb, a mountain to climb, I should say, to kind of back it up after the Stormers, the euphoria, that win. And, most probably it was 95% sure that they were in Champions Cup and they were in the playoffs. But to go out and dig in and fight like they did in the second half, and possibly should have won it. Graham Rowntree said he
should have won it.
Yeah, in the end.
I was raging for the last phases of play. They should have won that. They should have had more. They should have been calmer. They should have been more clinical in that space. Think about the top 4 teams and their ability to execute and be accurate at clinical moments. That was one, and Munster will be raging. But they'll also learn a huge amount from it.
As it turned out, it wouldn't have made a difference if they got a bonus point win. They'd be on 56 points. Glasgow, they would have needed
but it's the confidence.
But psychologically. Yeah. But look, a draw here is nearly as good as a win, given the scoreline just in the start of the second half. After round 16, Munster had the most carries. They were 3rd for the most meters. They had the most passes in the league. Most offloads as well. So they were really good stats from an attack point of view. So we've seen a transition in the way this team has played. You mentioned it, them being brave, their attack, their confidence to try and play rugby and play more attractive rugby from what we'd seen under the previous regime, which, there was a lot of frustration at times when they lost games. I know they still had some big wins over the last number of years under the previous coaches, but I think they've kind of captured the imagination and got the Munster fans back on board. Again, we're not being unrealistic here and thinking Munster should be winning trophies. There's still a good bit way to go, but I think the way they've played, and the stats prove that, and the stats do again from the weekend. We'll go into the game a little bit more in a minute, and get 2 weeks. Read out some of the tweets there, and what the fans' thoughts were on the 2 weeks, which I put the tweet out. And one thing I did say, it's kind of a question, and then me providing a little bit of my opinion, which is, I'll say it again, they deserve massive credit for what they did in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, hugely. Keane McGivney agreed. He said a huge credit to all involved to win versus Stormers and then almost nick a win versus Sharks. After Glasgow, the squad really came together and put in 2 strong performances. Roll on Glasgow away in 2 weeks' time. Granny Bab said Stephen Archer should get the freedom of every butcher's in Munster, free steaks for life. Shane Ivor's battle showed the steel we have been looking for all season. Great win. John Toohey, super second half. Brilliant to finish 5th considering where we were after 7 matches. Best defence in the league despite the 3-match spell when we fought hard when we forgot how to. Glasgow will be hard.
Just on that one, Niamh, the best defence, well, points conceded, points against. So Munster have 357, and the next best Leinster on 363. So points conceded, they've the least amount conceded in the league. So that kind of tells
we were
us
worried
something.
A few weeks ago.
And given that even period for Scarlets and Glasgow, where they conceded a lot of tries and points, that's a really good return. So there is even positives in that that you can take out of that from a defensive point of view. Their scramble defense has been brilliant when they've been under pressure in games this season. So that's a good point to kind of clarify as well. 357, least amount of points conceded in the league. It doesn't win you trophies, but it's something that you can kind of measure.
Helps you win games. Helps you win games. Glasgow will be hard. We were missing tackles. They will punish us. Munster to win by 3 points in the high intense in the game. Shane McLaughlin, when Healy came on, he was a game changer. Crossfield kicks behind massive spirals. He's going to be a massive loss. I'm always critical of the penalty machine that is Archer, but he's put massive shifts in the last few weeks and is playing very well. Murray, class outfit as always. And Liam Sheehan, the dog is back. Munster gave themselves a hill to climb at half time, but stuck to the task. Murray was masterful and Healy did well on his introduction. Pete gave a masterclass on disruptive back row play. Bring on Glasgow. Paul Carter, great to see Keith Earls join the 200 club. Any word on his future with the club? 2 great shifts put in by the lads in South Africa. Ben Healy was immense centre pairing of Frisch and Fekatoa, unreal. Roll on Glasgow. Just a word there in Earlsy telling me 200 club, unbelievable. Devastating to see him come off when injury.
Am I right in saying it's the 14th player to get over 200 caps? Yeah. I think I was back there and it was Axel first, then it could have been I was close. I was next. I think John Hayes, Donica, loads of them, Ronan, they all started to come in. It's incredible. It's incredible for Keith Earls. He was on the bench for us in 2008 in the Heineken Cup final. That's nearly 15 years ago. It's nearly 15 years ago this May. It's phenomenal. He's had an incredible career, and not just with Ireland, but with Munster, and one club man. It's been brilliant playing with him and seeing him, how he's developed and the type of person he is as well. My heart was broken for him, as all the Munster fans that were there, because we were sitting right behind the dugout, Munster dugout in Kings Park on Saturday evening, and to see him coming off the field and the disappointment and frustration, because he may not play again for Munster, who knows? And it's heartbreaking. So on his 200 cap, he picks up another injury, and he's had a kind of a very unlucky season with injuries, and it's heartbreaking. But deserves massive credit to get over 200 caps, because he's 98 or 99 caps for Ireland as well.
98 for Ireland.
So, I'd love to see him. Everyone would love to see him get to 100 as well. But look, it was a shame to see him picking up another injury, but he deserves great credit for being around for that long and being such a great player for Munster over the years. Yeah,
absolute class. And it's when your peers speak so highly about you all the time, then you're doing something right. So incredible stuff. Just a couple more. So Joe says, fantastic return from 2 tough away games in South Africa. Really impressed by the younger players such as Nash and Kendellen, for example, who showed real maturity despite their age. Hopefully we take the same attitude to our trip to Glasgow. Dennis Milan, great result in the performance. 7 points from a 2-week trip to South Africa is a brilliant result. Well done, lads. Was that match in Cork on Saturday encouraging to hold the England team scoreless? Oh, that's from the women's. Fair play to you. Thanks, Dennis. Alan O'Flynn, hi all. Unreservedly agree with the opening tweet. Enjoyed watching Munster find a way to turn the game around. Also a note, they simply refused to be bullied by the powerful Sharks. Munster more than deserved the right to go and achieve. Tom Lundergan, 2 massive results for Munster in South Africa. It took Peter O'Mahony to leash that Munster dog in the second half to rattle the Sharks. But the lads were stoked from then on in and never looked back. 18 points without reply in the second half away to South Africa is testimony to the spirit of the Munster cap.
Okay.
Yeah, look, they're all very similar. To be fair, I think that's what they're talking about most.
Yeah, we can't read them all out, but look, thanks to everyone for getting involved and giving us their thoughts. I think everyone's happy to a point that they're in the playoffs and they're in Europe next year. So, but bonus territory. But if Graham Rowntree heard me saying, "Well, you're in bonus territory now, it's grand, you can relax," he wouldn't be too happy. But you know what I mean. There's a little bit of pressure off. As regards, and I've said this, if they're in the playoffs in Europe, they'll be a handful for anyone if they get it right, and play with a little bit more freedom. I think they were panicky a little bit in that first half on Saturday against the Sharks. So 22 all draw. Munster, we reckon, could have won it. Given the dominance of the Sharks in the first half, it might have been a little tad unfair, but the way Munster played from about the 45th minute onwards was phenomenal. Now, the stats are crazy. Munster had 69% possession, which is a load when you're away from home. 19 defenders beaten, 11 offloads, 69% territory. So they're playing in the right areas. And this is an incredible stat. So tackles made by both sides, 143 tackles by the Sharks. Munster had to make 41 tackles. So low.
That's surely not right.
It is right. They just had so much ball. The Sharks hadn't any sustained long periods of pressure.
No, I know they kicked a lot, yeah.
They didn't get into multi-phase too often. Now, okay, the 3 tries they got in the first half, one was the maul. Again, Cox scored a second try. Again, that was a line break, and he picked and went close to the ruck. And Nacho scores a third try from a maul, off the side of a maul again. 12 missed tackles. The Sharks missed 19. Turnovers 1, Munster 5. And their penalty count, even though they gave away, I think it was 4 or 5 penalties in the scrum, penalty count was 9. So it was under the double figures. So the stats there would suggest that Munster could have and should have won this game. But you can't take away from the fact of the power and that physicality early on and that early dominance from the Sharks. They were just so powerful. And there wasn't a great flow to the game, and they have an ability to stop that. So really powerful side. But in the end, and this is where I'm going to talk about the positives and negatives, Munster's fitness, something we spoke about 2 weeks ago, and maybe we're misconstrued in what we're trying to say there. We're talking about fitness at the start of the season, hitting the ground running and pre-season and all that stuff. I still say that could have been better based on what I saw. There was mitigation in there, of course, with the tour to South Africa and the number of injuries Munster had. They were probably hit hardest by that development tour in South Africa. That Emerging Ireland tour, remember, that was in September, and they had a lot of players go on that. So there's a bit of mitigation in there. But when I was talking about the fitness, was just really, it took a bit of time with what Mike Prendergast was trying to do in attack. But their fitness in the second half the other day was a big strength. They just the Sharks looked out on their feet. Against, and the collisions and the power that they possess defensively around
the intensity.
It's hard
the
going.
Intensity that they were able to go.
And in the end, Munster were just playing with pace, tempo, going over and back. Such loads of players making, just hitting brick walls, but going again and again and again. And they got some space. The mental toughness, and that's something that you can really take out of this tour, is the way they dug in the 2 weeks, and they fought like hell to get results, and the character of the players. You talk about Peter O'Mahony, lots of people do, but his character and his fight, I saw it out a lot of players in the last 2 weeks, and they deserve to be applauded for that. Some will argue that should be a given when you put on a Munster jersey, but you have to learn that as well, and that toughness that you need when your back is against the wall. So I thought that was incredible and real big positive in the last 2 weeks, aside from the results. The attack, they took opportunities when they presented themselves. The maul was a really good thing. Probably the negatives were, certainly in the first half, was the scrum, and that's really difficult when you're up against Oxenche, Ombanambi, and
so big
Thomas Toy, and that front row is an international front row, so powerful. So it was tough in Jeremy Lockman, Stephen Archer, and Dermot Byrne because there was so much power coming through. But technically, they seemed to get it right, and collectively, as a forward pack in that second half, there was a few crucial scrums that they just had to lock out, get the ball away. But they were under pressure there, so to get the result they did, being under so much pressure. And I would say another thing in the first half, a little bit of panic. They were trying to force things a little bit and didn't protect the ball like they should have. But all the positives are really for what happened in the second half.
Yeah, look, I think from a 2-week tour, this has been incredibly positive. I think we spoke about, how they dropped off a little bit beforehand and how frustrating that must have been for them as coaching group and the players. The only negative that I have, and it's something that's kind of been it's happened a bit over the season, is this slow start, the slow start for the first 40 minutes.
Well,
we're getting into,
and it was the opposite from the week before, wasn't it? Because
I know, but that's kind of that was a little bit of the anomaly around the season, I suppose. I think if they continue to give teams slow starts, look, they're not going to catch any team now. Like the way it's gone up, it's gone into cup rugby now. We're talking about teams being really clinical. We're talking about teams having the ability to execute more. So once teams get those fast starts against us, they're just going to be gone. So you've got to really make sure that come that Glasgow game, that's a fast start.
Do you know what
they just can't afford?
I agree with you entirely. Do you know what this team is so much better at doing, though? Is chasing teams down if they're behind. You still feel there's tries in them. I didn't feel that in the last couple of years, Niamh. When they went behind in previous years, the attack wasn't there to find tries. So that's one thing, but I agree entirely. No coach wants to let the opposition start really well because it sets the tone for the whole game. And that was brilliant. The mental toughness of the players. And then if we were starting picking out players like John Klein.
We have to talk about Calvin Nash. Okay, I know you're a forward and you love to talk about forwards.
Well, I do the forwards first.
No, but can we just talk about Calvin Nash? He surely has to be a bowler for that World Cup squad. Like when you look at, we're talking about players on form. He is on form. When you look at the likes of the other provinces and the other wingers and the back three players that the other provinces have, he is the most on form right winger in the country at the moment.
He's the most improved player I've seen because he always had that talent and ability. But I just think there's a flow to his game now, a work rate coming in off the sideline, making passes. He's just been brilliant. He's defensively improved, got his timing right. It was never a bad tackler, but his timing and his positioning is so good. Under the high ball, at one stage, box kick in the second half from Conor Murray. Nash is up winning in the air. Big moments in the game. He was outstanding, as were Malachi Fekitoa. I thought he was sensational, and Anton Frisch, the two centres with the ball.
Fekitoa's ability to square up in traffic is really good. So his ability to explode into it's kind of Josh Van der Fleer-esque. He's a hip, so he's going lateral. The minute the contact's made, he's got ability to whip his body around to square up into contact. Thought he was very good as well.
But even from a work rate point of view, like getting multiple carries, something that he struggled with at the start of the season. Shane Daly, Conor Murray, the veteran we call him, he won't mind us saying that. I thought he was brilliant over these two games. He wasn't
far off my man to match. Yeah, wouldn't be far off my man.
From his reaction from being dropped for Northampton back in January, I think it's kind of a great example for young sports people. You know, if they're dropped.
Agreed.
We hope Joey Carberry's the same reaction. And we'll talk about him in a second, but Murray was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. We can't go through every player.
Peter O'Mahony, go through your forwards now. Go on, go through your
Peter O'Mahony again, the fight, the determination. He got himself put in the bin. Ken Dillon, unbelievable tackles, work rate around the field. Gavin Coombs again, lots of big carries. And listen, he's not an international yet. Finian Wycherley, or has he been capped? He has been capped, has he?
Yeah, he has once. I thought he was incredible. He's come back from injury in incredible shape. He's come back in incredible shape.
He was absolutely brilliant the other day. The carries, the work rate, the tackles, just absolutely brilliant. I thought he really deserved to be up there and spoken about as possible player. He's one cap. Sorry, my apologies to Finian. I lost my track there for a minute, but look, he was brilliant. He came on against Japan in 2021 but he had a great game. John Klein again. We'll move on to the.
Lots of tweeters, were asking about John Klein and what he has to do to make that. To get into Andy Farrell's thoughts. What are your thoughts on that?
To get into Paul O'Connell's thoughts, I think I think
well,
they'll be very, very aware of how he's improved, and I think his ball handling ability, and he's become much better at making passes, the little wraparound passes, the offloads. He's very, very direct. He's brilliant in mauls. The work rate carries is phenomenal. So he deserves to be in the picture, I think, and spoken about.
Yeah, I agree.
Some very good second rows ahead of him. James Ryan, Ty Byrne, you name the rest of them. I'm gone blank again.
Oh yeah, look, no, we know it's a fairly stacked a fairly stacked. And this is the thing with this Irish squad. There's the depth chart is incredible for nearly every position that we talk about. So you've got to be doing something very exceptional to get in there. And I just think, we've made mistakes before of going into World Cups with players that have credit in the bank as opposed to players on form at times. And sometimes you need to just go with the players on form. So I don't know. To be fair to like that Leinster second row partnership, they're still in Europe. Ulster are still going very well. So it's not like John Klein is playing so much better than everybody else. I just think that he deserves to be in and around that. If you're talking about is it a 52-man squad they announced for the World Cup training? Is that what it is?
I'm not sure what they'll.
If you're looking at that kind of number, surely he has to be in there for that much.
Yeah, he's certainly been really, really consistent. I think you could add him to the rest of the group.
Who's your star of the week?
Star of the week for me, Stephen Archer. Played 80 minutes over both games. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, incredible.
And it's not just, look, I know the scrum was under pressure in that first half, but his performance around the field was brilliant. It isn't the kind of a sympathy vote for Stephen. He won't want it. I just think it's not just about playing the 80 minutes. I think his
work rate. He got on the ball a huge amount.
Good at the breakdown. I just saw him the other day in so many occasions in that match. Just being first, second person there, clearing out. And then you're coming up against a very powerful, disruptive side who want to counter ruck.
Yeah.
Very, very physical, and I thought he was.
I will give you that one. To be fair, even though I'm a hard push for Calvin Nash, I will give you that one.
Yeah,
tell me this and tell me no more. You were over there. Was the atmosphere good? What was it like?
It was brilliant. Yeah, I was there. It was 95 Munster supporters there with Rugby Travel Ireland. That group. There was a little sporadic pockets of other Munster fans who maybe living in South Africa or travelled out themselves, but there was 95 of us with Rugby Travel Ireland. It was brilliant. We had an event on Friday night before the Stormers game. Donald Lenihan interviewed Graham Rowntree and Dave Kilcoyne for the 95 supporters, which was lovely.
Brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant. Great to have some of the Munster party come in and Graham to come in like that, and Dave Kilcoyne. And then in Durban on Friday night, I interviewed R.G. Snyman and Mike Prendergast for the same group.
Brilliant.
The 95 Munster supporters there were kind of blown away.
How was R.G. Tell me in terms of is he back?
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Return to play.
It was a head knock, and he's going to be available the next day. Looks very fit. Starts looking lean. Spoke about the tough times with the injury and all that, and he was so great with all the fans that were there. Stayed for ages, photos for everyone, as did Mike. And as we were during the chat, Dennis Leamy, Andy Kiriakou, George Murray, Graham Rowntree walked in, and so they mingled and mixed. And I thought, wow, that's brilliant. And
that's
the
class.
thing about this match and even doing that event, Niamh, was that, God, are we, the narrative here would be easy to go, well, we've got the 5 points last week now, and we can kind of sit back a little bit and, Sharks will beat us and we'll accept that. But I love the fact that they had their game faces on as well, and they looked really focused.
Yeah.
I love the fact that they dug in there at the end, and they got just reward for hard work over the period in South Africa.
But
So
do you want to know what I love? I love that Graham Rowntree is bringing this club back to the supporters. I feel like there's a real big connection now. I think that, I've done a couple of things with him over those dinners, those corporate things, but he speaks about the support and how important it is to him and his family, and then obviously the Munster team, and he has a word for everybody afterwards, and it's genuine. It's actually proper. He's genuinely interested in what you've asked him, what you've to say, and there's a really good connection there.
and
I think
that's
that
so
went
true.
away for a few years, and I think you see it coming back now. It's incredible. There's a really good feel around the club at the moment, and even when the results aren't going, brilliant in terms of, we obviously had that tough home defeat to Glasgow. There's no one coming down on anybody with anything. It's a case of, okay, look, here we are. We're very realistic, but they can see things without emotion, and I think that's a huge testament to Rowntree and his coaching staff.
Yeah, I think there's an honesty there, Niamh, and I think the fans get that. I think he's up front when they don't play well. He'll speak about that. He won't try and mask over it or hide away from it, and I think that's important. But I agree with you entirely. Munster is more than just a team. Obviously, the team go out and they perform in the field. The fans have always been a really important part of the match day experience, and seeing the people who I was there with and what it means to them, paying hard-earned money to go to South Africa. Okay, it's a great trip, but it means everything. The results mean everything to them, and they loved it, and they were vocal. And I think the players came over after both games, and they could hear the fans singing and chanting and trying to make noise and supporting the team. Graham gets that. He could easily have said, "We've two important games in South Africa. We have no time to go into the hotel and meet a supporters group." But they didn't. They came in. They let the players. He came in with Dave. Obviously, players are not playing, but he came in the first night, and Dave Kilcoyne and RG Snyman and Mike Prendergast came in the second night. They sat up, chatted for a half an hour, stood for photos. And I think that was a lovely part of it. And the fans, they felt part of the group. They felt part of that group in South Africa. So that was a lovely part of it. And I think that's down to Graham Rowntree. And I think he gets it. He's played with Leicester for so long, and he similar club and culture and tradition. So look, nobody's going to get carried away here and think, right, we're back, everything is great. It's not. There's still work to be done. Like I said, the last few weeks, they know that. But I think it's a great reaction, what we've seen the last 2 weeks, Niamh, to where this team can go, and the big improvements that we've seen this year around attack and around the way they're playing. I think that's the big positive. They've obviously, when the season finishes, they've got to build on that. They're still underpowered in some positions, and that's about depth in the squad. It's not having a go at any individuals. The front row situation came up a lot in the last couple of weeks, but it's about getting more depth in certain positions. Again, you don't have a carte blanche checkbook that you can go out and just sign who you like. It's a process here, but I think it's really important from a financial point of view as well, when you're talking about the brass tacks that they're in Europe next year. We'll talk more about Glasgow next week. Obviously, the good news, I think, for Munster is they'll have a number of players possibly coming back. They certainly won't underestimate, or Glasgow won't underestimate Munster, because they had a really good result a few weeks ago. I think they know what we've seen in Munster the last 2 weeks. If they get their game right, they can be a handful. And they proved that in the 2 games. John Hodnett could be back, Niall Scannell, Roman Salanoa, Dave Kilcoyne, RG Snyman, and small possibility that Ty Byrne could be in the mix as well.
Brilliant.
That's not a bad group of players to have come back at their business end of the season, as regards, getting a real strong bench over in Glasgow as well. And, and maybe putting a few weeks ago, what happened a few weeks ago to bed. It's better than going to South Africa, because, there was every chance if Munster didn't get at in here, they could have been going back to the Stormers. So those 2 points gave them the opportunity and the chance to even though Glasgow is going to be very difficult, and they've been superb this year. They finished 8 points ahead of Munster in the league, so that's where they're at. That's going to be a really difficult game. But it is great. It's a Saturday night, and I'm sure that lots of Munster fans will go over there. And it's going to be a difficult game for sure, but they're in a good position now, and I think they have a week and a half. No game this weekend. We should mention, it's not a surprise that Leinster are top of the league. They've been brilliant this year. They won 17 of their 18 games. They lost their first game on Saturday against a very strong Bull side. So they've been absolutely brilliant. Ulster, after that blip period from kind of December to January, they've got themselves back on track and deservedly finished second. But Connacht, a lot of people tweeting about saying thanks to Munster at the weekend for getting them up to seventh. They deserve credit. Brilliant. Four provinces, and so a good weekend for the Irish. Well, a good finish to the league. It wasn't a good weekend for that Leinster team, but I'm sure they'll learn a lot. And so that's it for episode 68 of the Red 78, and we look forward to previewing the Glasgow game next week, and fingers crossed, toes crossed that you can get a result in Scotland as well. So good luck with that, and thanks again.
Thanks, Quinn. Thanks.
The Red 78 with Quinlan and Niamh Briggs. Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
I'd like to think I know a lot.